Hey everyone, ready to dive into something pretty big.
I am. Always up for a challenge.
This time you all sent over the United in Science 2024 report, and wow, this thing is packed.
It really does cover a lot of ground, doesn't it?
Yeah, we're talking about insights from the world's top scientists, experts on weather, climate.
And what it all means for, well, us.
Exactly. So if you're ready to explore the latest and maybe uncover a bit of hope for the future,
Then buckle up because we're about to unpack some serious science.
it's a bit like opening a treasure chest, this report.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Some parts might feel a little daunting.
Right. Definitely some serious stuff to consider.
But there are also those moments that spark excitement and possibility.
It's a remarkable blend of honesty and innovation, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. The report doesn't sugarcoat the realities we're up against.
But it also showcases the incredible ingenuity and collaboration happening all over the world.
Exactly. Okay, so before we get to the exciting solutions brewing, I think we need to address the elephant in the room.
Greenhouse gases, right?
Sadly, yes. Those emissions, they're still climbing.
It's a concerning trend for sure. The report states that in 2022 alone, we hit a record 57.4 billion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent emissions. And it's not just CO2 either.
Right, it's like a triple threat, isn't it?
It is. Methane and nitrous oxide are also playing their part in this upward trend.
Okay, so emissions are up, and as we know, that translates to a warmer planet. What does the report say about global temperatures?
Well, it confirms what many of us have been feeling. 2023 was the warmest year on record.
Wow, the warmest year ever.
Ever recorded, yeah. And by a significant margin. But this isn't just about hotter summers or milder winters, you know?
Right, it's about disrupting the delicate balance of our entire planet.
Precisely. We're talking about a cascade of consequences, impacting weather patterns across the globe in ways we can't even fully grasp yet.
It's a bit unsettling to think about these rising temperatures becoming the new normal. Does the report offer any insights into what the near future might hold?
Unfortunately, it's not the rosiest picture. There's an 86% chance that at least 1 year between now and 2028 will be even hotter than 2023.
Wow, even hotter.
Yes. And if we look at the next 5 years as a whole, they're projected to be warmer than any period in recorded history.
It's almost hard to wrap our heads around, isn't it?
It is. And we have to remember these aren't just numbers on a chart. These rising temperatures have very real consequences.
It's not just about a few extra degrees on the thermometer, it's about the increasing intensity and frequency of extreme weather events.
You're hitting on a crucial point. It seems like every time we turn on the news, there's another devastating hurricane, an unprecedented heat wave, or massive wildfires raging out of control.
Exactly. So does the report delve into specific instances of these extreme weather events?
It does. The report takes a close look at the extreme weather events we witnessed in early 2024. And let me tell you, it's a sobering reality check.
Okay, let's talk about some of those specific examples. What stands out?
Well, those brutal heat waves in Asia, for example. We saw temperatures in India soar to a staggering 47.2 degrees Celsius.
I remember that. It was awful. Schools were forced to close, and the health risks, especially for vulnerable populations, were incredibly alarming.
Absolutely. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, we had the catastrophic floods in Brazil.
Those images were heartbreaking. Entire communities submerged, people struggling to escape the rising waters.
It was devastating. The state of Rio Grande do Sul, they faced the worst flooding in their history. Over 90% of the state was impacted.
90%, that's almost impossible to comprehend.
It is. Over 386,000 people were displaced from their homes, many left without power or water for days, even weeks in some cases. These aren't just statistics we're talking about. These are real lives deeply impacted.
Reading those accounts really drives home the human cost of climate change. It's not just an abstract concept, it's impacting people's lives right now. And it's not just those two examples, is it?
Sadly, no. We also saw Hurricane Beryl, the first Atlantic hurricane to form that early in the year since, well, forever.
It feels like we're witnessing a pattern here. More extreme weather events happening more often and with greater intensity.
And that's precisely what the report emphasizes. These aren't isolated incidents, they're interconnected. And it even goes a step further by explicitly linking these extreme weather events to climate change.
So it's not just a question of if climate change is happening anymore, but how much of an impact it's having on these devastating events.
Exactly. The report highlights how rapid attribution studies have found that climate change significantly amplified both the intensity and likelihood of those floods in Brazil we were just discussing.
So scientists are able to draw a direct line between climate change and the severity of these events.
They are, and those attribution studies found similar results for the drought that gripped southern Africa.
Yeah.
While El Niño certainly played a role, the report clearly states that climate change intensified the impacts, leading to more severe water shortages and crop failures.
So it's a complex interplay of factors, but climate change is undeniably exacerbating these crises. It's a lot to process, and honestly, it feels pretty bleak. Is there any good news in this report? Any reason for optimism?
There is, actually. There's a glimmer of hope amidst the stark warnings.
Okay, so it's not all doom and gloom. Tell me more. What is it?
The report acknowledges that the global efforts to reduce emissions, those are having an effect.
Okay, so we're making some progress, but it's probably not happening as quickly as we'd like, right?
That's the challenge we're facing. The report talks about what they call the emissions gap.
The emissions gap.
Yeah, it's the difference between where our emissions are currently headed
Yeah.
and where they need to be to limit warming to those crucial targets outlined in the Paris Agreement.
Right, the Paris Agreement. A quick reminder for our listeners, those targets aim to keep global warming well below 2 degrees Celsius and ideally even lower to 1.5 degrees by the end of the century.
Exactly. And the report lays out two possible scenarios. If we continue with our current policies, business as usual.
We're on track for a much warmer planet.
Unfortunately, yes. We're looking at a likely increase of 3 degrees Celsius by the year 2100. But, and this is a big booch, if countries fully implement their most ambitious, nationally determined contributions, those pledges they made under the Paris Agreement.
Then we might have a chance to avoid the worst-case scenario.
Exactly. We could potentially limit warming to 2 degrees.
Okay, so there is a path forward, but it requires all those countries to actually step up and fulfill those ambitious pledges. What about the 1.5-degree target? What are the chances of us actually achieving that?
Well, even with those most ambitious efforts, the report estimates only about a 14% chance of hitting that target.
So, not impossible, but definitely not the most likely outcome.
It's a bit of a long shot, but it highlights the urgency of the situation.
It's like we're standing at a fork in the road. One path leads to those more severe and irreversible impacts of climate change, while the other offers a chance, albeit a slim one, to avert disaster.
It's a powerful analogy, and it underscores the importance of making the right choices now. But there is some good news on the horizon. Remember those science fiction-esque solutions we talked about earlier?
Oh, right. Those game-changing technologies. Tell me more. What did the report have to say about those?
This is where things get really interesting. The report dives into the potential for technology to help us bridge that emissions gap, A&D, adapt to the changes that are already happening.
Okay, now you've got me intrigued. Let's talk about some of those specific technologies. What stood out to you?
One area that's truly exciting is the use of artificial intelligence and machine learning. And no, I'm not talking about AI writing our emails here.
Oh, good, because my inbox is overflowing as it is.
Right. So this is about harnessing the power of AI to create faster, cheaper, and potentially even more accurate weather forecasting models.
So instead of relying solely on those massive, expensive supercomputers, we can use AI to predict the weather.
Exactly. These AI models, they can be trained on massive amounts of data. Past weather patterns, observations from satellites, readings from ground-based weather stations, you name it. And this allows them to identify complex patterns and make predictions with remarkable accuracy.
Okay, that makes sense, but how do those AI predictions compare to our current forecasting methods? Are they actually better?
Studies are showing that some of these AI models are already outperforming traditional models in certain areas, like predicting the path of hurricanes, for example.
Wow, that's impressive.
It is. There's this one model called GraphCast that's been making waves in the meteorological community for its accuracy in forecasting hurricane tracks. And the beauty of AI is that it can crunch these massive amounts of data much faster A&D at a fraction of the cost of traditional methods.
That's a game changer, making these powerful tools more accessible to more countries around the world.
Absolutely. Imagine getting more accurate and timely hurricane warnings on your phone, all thanks to AI.
That could be life-saving, literally. But I'm guessing there are also limitations and challenges with using AI for something as complex as weather forecasting, right?
Of course. There are always limitations with any new technology. One of the biggest challenges is data, or rather the lack of it.
How so?
Well, these AI models, they thrive on huge volumes of high-quality data. And in many parts of the world, especially in developing countries, there simply aren't enough weather stations collecting that data. So gaps in data can significantly impact the accuracy of those AI predictions.
Yeah, it's like the old saying, garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly. Feed the model bad data, and you're going to get unreliable results. And then there's the issue of transparency.
Transparency.
It can be challenging even for the experts to understand exactly how an AI model arrives at its predictions. It's like this black box aspect of AI. And that can make some people hesitant to fully embrace it, especially when it comes to something as critical as weather forecasting.
Right, because we don't want to blindly trust a system that we don't fully understand, especially when lives are potentially at stake. Are there any other concerns about using AI in this way?
Another important issue the report highlights is the potential for unequal access to these technologies. We have to ensure that AI isn't just a tool for wealthier nations, but that it benefits everyone, regardless of where they live or their economic status.
That's a crucial point. We can't allow technology to further exacerbate existing inequalities.
Exactly. It's about ensuring equity in how we approach these solutions. So, AI is definitely one piece of the puzzle, but it's not the whole picture. The report also dives into the incredible role that space is playing in our efforts to tackle climate change.
Space, you mean like satellites and stuff?
Yes, space-based Earth observations are becoming indispensable in our fight against climate change. And no, I'm not just talking about those stunning photos of Earth from space.
Because as beautiful as those images are, we need more than just pretty pictures to solve this crisis.
Precisely. We're talking about new satellite technologies being deployed that can actually track greenhouse gas emissions, monitor deforestation, and even predict floods with remarkable precision.
Wait, hold on. Predicting floods from space? That sounds like something straight out of Star Trek. How does that even work?
It's pretty incredible. These satellites, they're equipped with advanced radar technology that can actually see through clouds and measure things like soil moisture, snowpack.
Wow, so they can tell how much moisture is in the ground from space.
They can. And even those subtle changes in the Earth's elevation that often indicate rising water levels.
So they can detect these subtle changes from hundreds of miles away.
It's mind-blowing, right?
Yeah.
This data is then relayed to scientists who use it to predict floods, sometimes days or even weeks in advance.
Providing invaluable time for communities to prepare and hopefully evacuate if needed.
Exactly. It's like having this global early warning system for floods, potentially saving lives and reducing damage.
That's amazing. What about tracking emissions? How can satellites help us with that?
There's this whole new generation of satellite missions being launched
Yeah.
that can actually measure the concentration of greenhouse gases, like carbon dioxide and methane, directly from space.
So they can tell us how much of these gases are in the atmosphere and where they're coming from.
Precisely. And when you combine this satellite data with ground-based measurements and modeling, scientists can then pinpoint the sources of those emissions, whether they're coming from power plants, deforestation, even agricultural practices.
It's like having a global emissions inventory, helping us understand where we need to focus our efforts to reduce our impact. Okay, so we've covered AI and satellites. What other technological marvels did this report unveil?
Get this, digital twins and the metaverse. Now, you might be thinking those are just for gaming and virtual reality, but they're now being enlisted in the fight against climate change as well.
Wait a minute, the metaverse? You mean like strapping on a VR headset and hanging out with avatars? How can that possibly help us tackle climate change?
It's not quite as simple as that. Think of it this way. Imagine creating a virtual replica, a digital twin, of an entire city or even an entire ecosystem.
And then, what can we actually do with these digital twins?
Once you have this digital twin, you can run simulations, see how that city reacts to a heat wave, a flood, or even a prolonged drought. Test out different adaptation strategies, things like building seawalls, expanding green spaces, implementing new building codes.
All virtually, before spending any resources in the real world.
Exactly. It's like having this giant simulator for the planet, giving us a chance to experiment and see what works best before we actually implement those solutions.
A dress rehearsal for climate action, I love it.
Right. And that's where the metaverse element comes into play.
Okay, so less about gaming, more about problem solving.
Exactly. Imagine scientists, policymakers, community leaders, all coming together from all over the globe.
But in this virtual space.
Yes, they can explore these digital twins together,
Yeah.
share their knowledge, collaborate on solutions.
A global brainstorming session, but instead of sticky notes and whiteboards, we have virtual cities and ecosystems. It's amazing. This report has certainly opened my eyes to the incredible innovation happening in this field.
It's inspiring, isn't it? But as we touched on earlier, technology alone isn't enough.
Right, it's a tool, but it's not the entire solution.
The report really emphasizes the importance of what they call transdisciplinary approaches.
Transdisciplinary approaches. It sounds important, but I have to admit, I'm not entirely sure what that means.
It's about breaking down those silos. We need scientists working with policymakers, who are in turn collaborating with local communities.
Recognizing that everyone has valuable knowledge and a unique perspective to bring to the table.
Exactly. It recognizes that people are at the heart of these issues, and we need to draw on all forms of knowledge, scientific and otherwise, to find solutions.
So it's not just about the hard science, it's also about social science, local knowledge, even cultural understanding.
The report actually highlights some inspiring examples of citizen science projects that are already making a real difference.
Oh, like what? Tell me more.
There are communities using smartphone apps to collect data on local weather patterns, which then helps to improve the accuracy of hyperlocal forecasts.
So everyday citizens contributing to scientific research and making a tangible impact.
Yes. And in other cases, they found that indigenous knowledge about local ecosystems is proving invaluable.
Makes perfect sense combining that traditional knowledge with modern science.
It's about building trust and fostering a sense of ownership. By involving communities in the process, we can ensure that the solutions are not only effective, but also relevant to their needs and concerns.
It's about empowering people to be part of the solution, not just passive recipients of it. Speaking of empowering people, there's one more initiative from the report that I found incredibly compelling. The UN's Early Warnings for All initiative.
Yes, this is a big one. The goal is to ensure that everyone on Earth has access to life-saving early warning systems for extreme weather by 2027.
That's just a few short years away. It's an ambitious target. So why is this initiative so critical? What are the biggest obstacles?
The report highlights this really stark statistic. Countries with limited early warning systems have a disaster-related mortality rate 6 times higher than those with comprehensive systems.
6 times higher. That's a staggering difference.
It is. And it underscores just how crucial this initiative is. It's ultimately about saving lives and reducing the devastating impact of these events.
Absolutely. But how do we achieve such a massive goal in such a limited time frame? What needs to happen?
It's going to require a multi-pronged approach. But first and foremost, we need to address the data gaps. In many parts of the world, especially in less developed countries, there's simply not enough data being collected.
Data on weather patterns, risk factors, vulnerable populations.
Exactly. And that's where technologies like those advanced satellites we talked about earlier come into play.
Right. We can use those satellites to gather data, even in those remote or underserved areas where traditional monitoring stations might be limited.
Exactly. But it's not enough to just have the data. We also need to be able to communicate it effectively.
Warn people in a way that's timely and actionable.
Exactly. And that's where AI, coupled with those multi-channel communication platforms, can be really powerful. Imagine AI helping us analyze data in real time, predict risks more accurately, and then tailor warnings to specific communities.
Based on their location, language, even specific vulnerabilities.
Yes. And we can use any communication tool at our disposal: mobile phone alerts, radio broadcasts, community networks, even loudspeakers, to make sure those warnings reach everyone who needs them.
It's about meeting people where they are.
Absolutely.
Right.
And you know what else? This is where those citizen science projects we talked about earlier can also play a role.
Right. They're already a vital part of the solution.
Local communities, they often have the trust and the on-the-ground knowledge to disseminate those warnings effectively, especially in those areas where trust in official sources might be low.
They can act as that vital link, connecting the data with the people who need it most.
Exactly. And the report even highlighted a really cool project that I thought you might find interesting. Have you heard of the Disaster Connectivity Map?
The Disaster Connectivity Map. It rings a bell, but I'd love to hear more.
It's this fascinating project being led by the International Telecommunication Union. They're using AI, again with the AI, to create a real-time map of communication networks during a disaster.
So if there's a hurricane or an earthquake, this map shows which communication systems are still operational.
Exactly, which is crucial for coordinating those emergency response efforts.
Absolutely. And knowing which communication channels are still up and running, you can target those early warnings much more effectively, making every bit of information count during those critical moments.
It's about connecting the dots, literally and figuratively.
To create a more resilient, more interconnected global community, it sounds like this Early Warnings for All initiative perfectly embodies the message of this entire report. It's about leveraging technology, collaborating across disciplines, empowering communities, all with the goal of creating a safer, more resilient future.
I think that's a beautiful way to put it. You know, what I find so compelling about this report is its emphasis on that interconnectedness. It's not just about reducing emissions. It's about recognizing that climate change touches every aspect of our lives.
And we need a holistic approach to address it.
Precisely. We need to leverage every tool at our disposal, from that cutting-edge technology we've been discussing to the wisdom of local communities to adapt and thrive in this changing world.
It's a powerful reminder that we're all in this together. And while this report certainly doesn't shy away from the stark realities of climate change, there's also a sense of cautious optimism woven throughout.
There is, because the challenges we face might be immense, but so is our capacity for innovation, for collaboration, for resilience, especially when we work together towards a common goal.
Exactly. So, to our listeners, what resonated most with you today? What questions or reflections did this deep dive into the United in Science 2024 report spark for you? Remember, this conversation doesn't end here. It's just the beginning of our collective journey towards a more sustainable future.